So our studio has actually moved. It's gonna be a little loud every now and again because we have fans and stuff like that going, but our studio is now in a different location. We've been working pretty hard, Noel and I, over the past few weeks trying to get the studio up and going. And we did a lot of work prior. This space was used as a shop for knives and welding and different things like that. There was a ton of dust, and there's still dust in certain areas if you were to look at it. But and here's an example actually. Watch this. This is like metal shavings, right? So we have to clean that area up a little bit, but the rest of the studio is clean. And now we're in the kiln room. So I'm going to give you a tour of our studio and what it looks like now. We need to put our little clock up too. Anyway, I would get distracted. So let's take a look at what we got going on here. So back here is our storage room. Our storage room is great because obviously Noel has spent a tremendous amount of time back here getting this area updated and fixed. This is all product here. And so that's where that is. Then we have our kiln, one of our kilns. This is the small one. Believe it or not, this is our smaller kiln. A mess over there. It looks better than it did. A mess right here. Trust me, the plastic will go and the cardboard will go. Uh, this table here is mainly for us to put a couple of different things. One, when we are working on the kiln or we're taking products out of the kiln, we put stuff here. So we put these little things here, these little stackers, or whatever we need to do. We put all that stuff here, and so it saves us time and all that type of stuff. So that's what this table's for. Or actually, my bad. This is the big kiln. I'm tripping. So this is our big kiln right here. Let me take a screenshot of it because I'm actually doing two things at one time. And then our little kiln is here. So this is called Smalls, and that's Biggie. So we have Biggie and Smalls. And so basically, these are our workhorses for the studio. This right here is, you see there's a pottery wheel table with some bowls on it. This is where we will do some slip casting and everything else and all of that. Here is the mountain of molds that we have to go through. And so we have an employee that will be doing all that stuff. Now he's been moving a lot of stuff and doing a lot of stuff, so that's been helpful. But the next thing he's going to tackle is this. This is just a shelf of finished pieces. Looks really, really great. So this right here is okay. So this is dang, I'm just messing up. This is basically just finished pieces. So that's basically for that part. This is our party room. And this is where we actually hold all of our parties and stuff like that. So it's a much bigger space. We're live. It's a much bigger space than what we had before for our party room. And so it includes all of this. Now, obviously, there's some junkage and stuff like that, but we're doing what we got to do. What's that?
These are half the size I thought they were gonna be.
Oh,
Sometimes you win, and sometimes,
not so
well.
much. So
They're cute.
here's an example of stuff that we pour. So this would go directly in the kiln. All of these things would. You have to be very careful because this is what's called greenware. It's easy for this stuff to break up So we want to be very, very careful. I want to get this out because this can damage it. See if I can. Yep, I did. Okay, so we got that stuff out. But this stuff is easy to break at this point. As you can see right here, the head broke off of this guy. So all that stuff will get fired. Once it gets fired, it'll look like this. So that's the difference, right? So these are all stuff that's been fired and they're done and ready to go. Even this big platter. I poured that and it's done and ready to go. All of what you see here, we've poured. So we literally pour all this stuff and fire it up. So all of this we poured. This is something that we did not pour, and this is what we buy from our um, distributors. This is a pretty cool guy. It's a dragon, but he's broken. So there's a lot of broken pieces, and typically what we do if it's broken, we just do away with it. This is an experiment to see if this is something we want to keep or not. We have stuff like this too from time to time. We have a basket of different things. So this is the new party room. There's a little puppy right there named Oreo. We got him 2 days ago. Supposedly he's just a little, supposedly he's going to be a little dog, but he looks big and he's only a couple of weeks old. So he's going to be a huge dog, I think. I think we were sold a bag of goods because he's almost the size of Quincy. All right, so now to our display area. Now right here is all figurines of different sizes. So you have some of the big, huge pieces up here like this. And I also poured these as well. So I poured those, but these we bought. You can't really tell much of a difference, right? That we bought those. So the vast majority of what you're seeing here is what we've actually bought. There might be some things that we've actually poured, but most of this is stuff we bought. And this is all figurines. I poured that one as well. So I have to pour more of those. Over here it's just empty dead space, but eventually it will have shelves over here as well. This will be what we call our seasonal section. From time to time we'll have seasonal products. We'll just put those right here. Noelle has already started putting up wall frogs. We're utilizing these spaces right here. Oh, he's peeing. Can you do something, Zara? Doggy's peeing on the floor. So then we have, he's just going to town, man. It's going to go down the crack. Hurry up, Zara. Just put it down. Put it down. All right. So I just now hung these lights up. So I just put these lights up actually. These were lights that we had in our backyard, but they have to have a dedicated electrical supply, and I didn't like that. And they have the remote and everything else. I didn't like that, so Noelle said, why don't we just use them for the studio? So that's what we did, is put these in, give us a little bit more light. We can change these and do whatever we need to do. There is lighting up above, but it's not that great. And back here is just dark. And trying to illuminate this has been a challenge, but we'll figure it out. So this is our gallery in here. So not only do you have there, but you also have right in here these windows. So what we wanted to do was create it so that nobody can push through and nobody can push through from the other side. The other side is seating. So I put in a fake window covering there to block out any potential issues. This is our playscape area right here. So it spells fun. We moved this table, it's very heavy. This is our panda pantry section right here. So it gets a lot of visibility. So that's a bonus. And then of course we have our seating area here, but we're not done. Design station's right in here. a sink. Then back here, we're back to where we came from. So this big wall, this door actually closes. It's pretty cool. So you move that out of the way, and you would never know that there was anything back there. So when people want to have a private party, this door is closed. The other section is fairly small. That's open, which is right there, so it's not a big deal. They have access to a sink. We also have an office, but since we have customers, I don't want to take you that way. So we have an office back there. Thank you, Bruce. Um, we have an office back there, and so that's where the girls stay, and that's where we keep a lot of other stuff that we need to keep. So it's pretty cool. And the best thing about this is that we're no longer upstairs. Upstairs is cool, but the big problem is when you come through to Freight House, this used to be an elevator that would allow people to go up, but apparently it was, I don't know, people were misusing it or something, so they turned it off completely. So getting up to the next floor, you would have to go all the way up these steps or go all the way to the other side of the building, come all the way down, and that's just such a hassle. So now, parking garage is right there, like normal, like our other studio was. You come up across, you come up this ramp, and then you're able to come through these doors here, and then you're able to come through right here, and then our studio is right there. So it makes things a whole lot easier. Noelle's going to paint this. This is the kiln room. So if you're having a hard time figuring out logistics, kiln rooms here, this is going to be painted. And then the outside here is going to stay pretty much the same. We're not going to change the outside parts of it. I don't want to show our customers. And then that's pretty much it. So it goes all the way down to here. We have another business moving in right here. So they're setting up and everything, which is great. And so, yeah, that's pretty much, let me flip it around this way, actually. That's pretty much what we've been working on. It's just getting things together. It's been a lot of work. Actually, one of the things we loved is our huge table. We had a massive table. Not the square one I showed you, but there's a huge table. It's like a big conference table. And we left it because it was too big and it wouldn't really fit the space well. The other thing we left was Noelle had a big cash register. It was a counter. And that counter was made by the previous person that had that space. It is extra heavy. Now, I could probably move it with like 2 or 3 other guys. Problem is, again, the steps. The other problem is that you have to bring it down the back. Taking it down the back is fine, but it starts to dip pretty heavy because it's a hill, and the chances of making a mistake is pretty high. So I didn't want to risk it, and it really didn't flow with this studio any longer. So we didn't bring it. So now she's going to get a raised desk that will lower and lift, and that's what we're going to do to solve that problem. So I'll show you the dog. He's right there. It's Quincy Pup. So Quincy's here, Noelle's over here working on the stuff that she's working on. And, I am just sitting here relaxing. See kind of what Noe's over there doing.
Is this on our channel?
Yeah. This is on our channel.
Hey, peeps.
So anyhow, that's pretty much it. It took a while to actually go through. Hey, Frank. Frank says hello. Not on my face. That was a lot of face. I'm sorry. So basically, I went through and mounted all of these shelves. These are all 5-tier shelves. So the 5-tier is important because it allows us to put a tremendous amount more than just the 4 tiers. This shelf over here is a much bigger shelf than these. It's a 5-tier, but it's much bigger, it's wider, and it's longer. And so that one is going to be used just for holiday items. So the 4 tiers are going to be in the back where I showed you, and that's where all the molds are. There's Zara Bean or Zeta, and our new dog Oreo. Yeah. So, yeah. So more than likely, Noelle's gonna move this Christmas stuff here and put it over there. Probably I'm gonna have to mount that because it's just these things, especially this one, you can tell the size difference. Uh, this thing is huge, so it can store a lot. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna mount it down here, and on the sides. That should be enough for it to be as stable as possible, and then therefore we don't have to worry about it tipping over. Um, so yeah, that's pretty much it in a nutshell. We still have a lot more stuff to put on here, but right now, um, we kind of did this in a rush. To be honest with you, we had to really, really crank it out. Let me fix this guy. We had to really, really crank it out, and so we didn't have a lot of time. So now we're trying to sort through, organize things. These are all poured. So we poured those. We poured all of those. We poured all of those. So there's some poured stuff, and then things like this is not. So there's certain things that we did not pour, and then there's some things that we did. Like I said before, I poured this Raggedy Ann. I gotta find Andy, the mold for Andy. I gotta find him. And these dragons are awesome. Dragons are hard to keep on the shelf, especially these. The ones that I poured, these are very, very hard to keep on the shelf. People love dragons, and they also love mushrooms. So having those, and I don't have any mushrooms out here, I don't think. Yeah, I don't think so. But I have a Mrs. Claus. I'll show you some of the molds that we have. What is that? I'll show you one of the molds that I have that I really want to pour. Hold on 1 second. Sorry if you're getting a lot of chin. Oh. Let me move this here. Let me flip this to here. So this is a mold. So how it works is that we have what's called slip. And the slip is, where does she put it? I don't know where she put it. Oh, it's right here. So this stuff right here is slip. Okay, so it's basically just wet concrete. You pour it in here. You have to mix it a certain way so that it's smoother. You pour it in here. You let it sit for a while. You pour it out, and then you have to pry it apart. Then you have to fire it in a kiln. So it is a very long process because basically it's an 8-hour deal. So it is a very long process. These kilns get excessively hot, right? They're just like a big giant toaster oven, but they get a couple of thousand degrees. There's that one. This guy here is a hoss. It's massive. And sometimes you can see how deep it is. We can stack several shelves in there, different variations. But there are times, okay, all right. There are times when it's so busy that this one is filled all the way up, that one's filled all the way up, and we still have pieces that aren't able to fit in there. So it takes, again, an 8-hour process, whether you're, no matter the circumstance. I will show you something here, actually. So at the end of the day, once they come out of the kiln, they'll look like this. They'll be shiny, and yeah, it's a lot of work. They'll be shiny and they'll be amazing, right? But when people paint them, so it's a long process. I pour it in the mold. It comes out looking like this. Once it's nice and firm, it's very fragile, so it can break. We fire it into the kiln, and it turns out like this. It turns white. So it goes from green ware to bisque. Okay? This is what you can put on the shelf. Then when people go and paint that, it looks like this. So it's very chalky, and it doesn't look very shiny, right? So then what we have to do is we put on a glaze, and it looks green, and I don't have it with me, but we put on a glaze, and then when we put it in the kiln for another 8 hours, it fires and it looks like this. So that's what gives it the sheen. So it is a very long process, but this is one of the molds that I really, really like. Haven't poured it yet, but it's a Swan, and I think it will do fairly well. Noelle buys molds. We went from having no molds at all to having probably, because there's a bunch at home, we probably have at least 200 molds, at least. So that blue thing is full of molds. This is full of molds. That's full of molds. That box is full. So probably at least 300. I'd say 300 to be fair. All of that is molds. And so we also have quite a few at home, which probably is about as much as all of that. So we have a lot of different things, and some of which we don't even know what we have, because she was just buying out complete garages. So Noelle went, bought entire garages full of molds. We've bought out probably 3 studios in terms of their product as well as their paint. So we actually have in there, in the party room, an area that is nothing but paint from another company. We bought out, let's see, so molds from people, various different people. Sometimes we bought them online. Another thing that I poured, believe it or not, so I poured this guy. So that is, the big pieces like that are great, but the problem is that there's a lot of things that can go wrong, and oftentimes they do. Final thing is, this room here, our party room, it looks like crap, right? It looks bad. But to be honest with you, all of it looked just like this. All of that looked like this until we went through and did this. Noelle did most of this painting. I did all the mounting of the shelves, but all of this looked like that, and now look at what it looks like. I don't want to show. Now look at what it looks like. I don't want to show the our customers that we have that are there, but it has completely changed. We didn't have to do much here. We have to do a lot of cleaning of the shelves because, again, a lot of that soot. Let me show you. I don't know if you guys missed it, but this used to be a fabrication shop, and this right here is metal. So that's actual metal. And so the reason why we haven't done anything in here yet is because we have to clean all that up, paint it. And so what Noelle's going to do is she's going to put pink on one wall, blue on one wall. I forget the other colors, but we're going to paint all of that. We're going to paint this door. Kiln room doesn't matter. It's meant to be dirty and gross, so we're not worried about that. These kilns don't plug into just a regular outlet. There are kilns that do, but these guys don't. The kilns that do plug into a regular wall outlet, like, well, like these, you can find those, but they're basically big enough to basically do pieces that are about this big, right? They're not very, very big whatsoever. When it comes to these types of guys, they use different power. This guy here is a massive, massive power user. You can see how thick that cord is. So this is my thumb, and you can see how thick that cord is running from it. So it has to, and this used to be a welder. So this is a 3-phase, and it has to go through this. That's what this guy uses. This guy over here also is a very strong piece of equipment, but again, it doesn't need that thick cord, right? It's a heavy-duty system, but it's different. With this one, we had to have them come in. It's 240 also, but this is not 3-phase, I don't believe. Or it can be, but it's not. So this actually just goes through, plugs in, and it turns on. Yeah, it's a very thick. It's a little scary. This is just the cord itself is heavy. You know, so we have this big, huge hook to hold that in because this cord's heavy. We didn't want it to just hang out because, again, firing this for 8 hours is a lot. In fact, if we put a cone in there, so Basically, what you have to do, here's a good example. There's a cone right here. And whenever this cone burns through, it turns the machine off, right? So the cones themselves, let me see if we have any. I don't know if I can get one out without putting the camera down. Let's see. Hold on. Yep, okay. So the cones are like this, right? We put them in and they work for either machine, but these cones are for low fire, right? It's not going to work if we turn this all the way up. With this guy here, it can do everything, right? So this can do glass, it can do stoneware, it can do everything. So it can get super, super hot, too hot for the stuff that we have. If we didn't have the cone in there and it kept going, it will literally just melt the paint off and it's not going to look good. It will actually warp the ceramic. So this stuff is basically stone. And once it gets to this stage, it's kind of like glass. It can get so hot that this will actually deform. So it won't even look like this. It would just deform and warp. That's how hot that can get. So with this one, you can do stone, glass, ceramics, and everything else. This one over here, you can definitely do those too, but it only goes up to a certain temperature because it can't handle that. So it's a much more simpler thing. It's basically got your off system, high, medium, and low. And so you turn it, and then when you have a cone in here, similar to the other one, it has one too, right? And so you have to lift this lever up, you put it in, you push this button in, and then you set it and you do what you got to do. So it's an 8-hour process, plus it takes 8 hours for it to cool down or so. So just one firing is like a 16-hour process. And so it's a big, big deal. So going from pouring it, 8 hours, plus it's got to cool down, so that's 16 hours. Then when people paint it, we glaze it, we put it in the kiln. It goes through that process, which is an 8-hour process, plus a cool down. It gives you an idea of how long it actually takes. It's a long process. Yeah, it takes 8 hours. I mean, these guys, this guy here can get up to over 3,000 degrees. So the big one, this dude, can get up to over 3,000 degrees easy, no problem. I mean, you see the cord. This one cannot. It gets up to about 2,000 or so, and then that's it. We're doing low fire, so we don't need either high heat. So it gets probably about 12 or 1,300 degrees is about where we go, and then that's it. But it basically regulates, and it keeps it so. These are what's called manual systems, and I don't want to go too deep into it, but these are manual systems, both of these. And people say that, oh, they fire differently, there's no consistency. But we're talking small changes. You wouldn't be able to know it. So, this may be from 5 or 6 different firings, and you can't tell the difference. There are some people who are experts that probably can, but the general customer is not going to know. I can't tell. They do have a digital system that makes it very particular. It keeps the temperature at the exact same. It doesn't dip by even a small percentage. These, there's going to be some fluctuations, but it's not enough to really change anything. And so some people don't like these. Some people love the digital. Some people hate the digital. Some people love the manual. Some people hate it. But this guy here can really cook. The other thing is that there's 2 halves here. So on either side is basically these big handles. When you're breaking these apart, because you have to do work on them, that's what that's for. When you're firing this, you want to make sure you leave a hole open so that basically you can see in there, but it gives it a chance to breathe out. We have a plug on top because this technically can be vented. And so if we didn't have that plug in there, which this glows, when this is on, this right here turns orange. It's so hot. And this is basically stone. If we didn't, all that heat would travel directly up in a funnel. And we have sprinklers. So we want to make sure that we don't do that. So we put this plug here. It forces the heat to come out here. And then we have these fans. We had one that was here. We have this one here, and we keep them on constantly so it can just push all that heat out. We don't have to worry about it. There's times when I have to do repairs on them. This one, I think we're good. We don't need to do any repairs on this one. This other one has been a pain, and the lady said it would be. This one's more reliable, but it's a pain. And what I mean by repairs is that right here you can see the coil is coming out. It'll still fire, but the problem is the more that coil is out, and you got to push it in there, push it down. This stuff here is very soft. It can handle a tremendous amount of heat, and it's made out of the same thing that this is made out of, right? But you have to take high pressure fire and a torch. Let me lock this in place. You have to take a torch and basically burn this, and then until it glows red, and then you have to push that stuff in, and you have to make sure it stays in. Otherwise, the more you fire it like this, because Noel just fires it, but this is out after a while, and then the more you fire it like this, the more likely you're going to have to replace all this. And so you have to hire a company. You don't have to, but I will. You hire a company, they come in and they fix all that for you and do it right. This one also, it has just 2 holes. Keep that one plugged. You should always keep just one open. We have this one open right here. This also gives us a chance to look in there, make sure it's cool, but you can see the heat is discolored this. It's just that hot. Over here, there's some heat that has discolored this as well. And so, but not as much. This guy here is so hot that you can feel it. Like when this one's on, I would never advise going inside of a kiln room while the kilns are going. There's a lot of gas and everything else being released. But when you come in here, you can feel this one if it's on. Like you can feel the heat. This guy, you can't stay in the room. It's just so hot. It just puts out a lot of heat, especially in this room. This is solid concrete here. So this is concrete, this is concrete. So, you're not gonna, they can handle the heat, but they also trap a lot of heat. And so it gets very, very, very hot when this guy is on. It's very difficult to stay in here. People say, well, what about all this paper and all this stuff? You wanna make sure when we fire, we keep all this stuff away. So because we're moving stuff and doing all this, a lot of stuff is around where it normally would not be. This stuff here is fine because we have at least a foot of clearance. So everything should be a foot away. These shelves are always put inside, so not an issue. All of these boxes here were put in here because obviously we're trying to find a place to put them as opposed to over there. But all this stuff is clear. This stuff here is fine. This stuff has to go, obviously. And then over here, these boxes, all that stuff is gone. This stuff here is fine. It's just basically slip. It's not a big deal. It's a foot away. So everything has to be at least 1 feet away from it, and you're good to go. So we've been doing that for, I don't know, over a year, and it's good. So all the boxes, once we get our shelves in here, and so some of them are here. So these used to be our display shelves. So now we've retired the 4 tiers, and this is where they live. We have 1 4-tier out there. We're going to probably get more and put them in here, and that's where all this stuff is going to go. Once that happens, the boxes are gone, they're done. But we do keep some boxes because we need them for carrying products. There's peanuts and stuff like this. When I would pour molds at home, I would wrap them into this, put them in here, and bring them all the way down here. So a lot of times that's done to keep them from rolling together and breaking and all that. So anyhow, I can go on and on and on and on and on. Be sure to join the Discord down in the description box below. Make sure that you like, you share, you subscribe, you do all those things, and even comment. And until next time, I will see you. Take care.